Ambassador Jinho Park stood alone in the center of the great chamber. The room was enormous, built for giants and creatures with many limbs. 47 species sat in their seats above him, looking down like he was an insect. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no faces at all. All of them thought humans were nothing. This was his 47th time standing in this exact spot. 3 years of his life spent asking the same question. 3 years of being laughed at, ignored, and treated like dirt. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Jinho said, his voice calm and steady. I come before you once again on behalf of Earth and her people. We seek formal recognition of our sovereignty. We seek fair trade rights. We seek only to exist peacefully among the stars. A wet, bubbling laugh came from the upper seats. Counselor Vrax, a creature that looked like a giant insect with armor-plated skin, leaned forward. His mandibles clicked together in amusement. The mammal speaks again, Vrax said. How entertaining. Does it not tire of wasting our time? Several other counselors laughed. Some made sounds that Jinho had learned were their versions of mockery. One delegate, a being made of floating gas, simply turned away and began a conversation with its neighbor. Jinho kept his face still. He had learned to hide his anger long ago. High Arbiter Moroth sat at the highest seat. He was ancient, with gray skin like stone and 6 eyes that glowed with pale light. He was the leader of the council, and he had dismissed every single one of Jinho's petitions. Ambassador Moroth said, his voice echoing through the chamber, We have heard your words many times. The answer remains unchanged. Earth is a young world. Your species has barely learned to walk among the stars. You have nothing to offer the council. With respect, High Arbiter, Jinho replied. We offer friendship. We offer trade. We offer the potential for enough. Morath raised one of his 4 hands. This session is concluded. There are matters of actual importance to discuss. You may leave. The dismissal was not new, but today it cut deeper than usual. Jinho had brought a new proposal, one that his government had spent months preparing. He had not even been allowed to present it. He bowed slightly, as was the custom, and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, he heard more laughter. Someone made a comment about the short-lived ones that caused great amusement. The doors closed behind him, and Jinho finally let his shoulders fall. Captain Unibeak was waiting for him in the corridor. She was a woman of 40, with sharp eyes and a military bearing that never relaxed. She commanded the ESS Horizon, Earth's flagship, which waited in orbit above this world. The same result? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Jinho nodded slowly. They did not even let me finish speaking. Yuna's jaw tightened. She had watched this happen too many times. Every time Jinho returned from that chamber, he looked older. The weight of constant humiliation was breaking him, piece by piece. Ambassador, she said quietly, perhaps it is time to consider other options. There are no other options. Captain Jinho started walking toward the transport pad. Humanity is not ready for war with the elder species. We must be patient. Patient. Yuna fell into step beside him. They treat you like an animal. They treat all of us like animals. How long must we be patient? Jinho did not answer. He had no answer to give. They returned to the ESS Horizon together. The ship was beautiful by human standards, sleek, fast, and carrying weapons that Earth's engineers believed were impressive. But Jinho had seen the warships of the elder species. The Horizon was a toy compared to them. Lieutenant Minho Choi met them in the landing bay. He was young, barely 25, with an eager face that had not yet learned to hide hope. When he saw Jinho's expression, that hope faded. No luck, sir? Minho asked. No luck, Jinho confirmed. He tried to smile for the young man's sake. But we will try again. We always do. He went to his quarters and sat in the darkness for a long time. On his desk was a photo of his family back on Earth. His wife, his 2 daughters, they were counting on him. All of humanity was counting on him. And he was failing. A chime sounded. An urgent message. Jinho activated his console and his blood turned to ice. The message was from Earth's command. 6 weeks ago, the Calorian Dominion Counselor Varax's species had moved a fleet to 3 human colony worlds on the edge of known space. At first, they called it military exercises, and they called it border security. They were calling it what it really was, a blockade. 3 million human civilians were trapped on those worlds. Supply ships were being turned away. Food was running out. Medicine was running out. And the Calorians were broadcasting a simple message to anyone who would listen. These worlds now belonged to them. Jinho read the message 3 times, hoping he had misunderstood. He had not. His door opened. Yuna stood there, her face pale. "You received the transmission," she said. "Yes, what do we do?" Jinho stared at the console. For 3 years, he had believed that patience would win. He had believed that if humanity showed itself to be peaceful and reasonable, the elder species would eventually accept them. He had believed in diplomacy. Now, 3 million of his people were trapped, and the council did not care. Vrax sat in that chamber, laughing at him, while his species starved human children. Something inside Jinho broke. It was quiet, like a thread snapping. But it was real. He stood up slowly. His hands were steady, but his voice was different now, harder. "I tried peace," he said softly. "For 3 years I tried. I stood in that chamber and let them mock me because I believed it was the right thing to do. I believed that if we were patient, if we were kind, they would see us as equals." He looked at Yuna. They would not even listen. Yuna watched him carefully. She had known this man for 5 years. She had never seen this look in his eyes before. "What are your orders, Ambassador?" Jinho walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of his people were suffering because the galaxy thought humanity was weak, because they thought humans could be pushed around, because they thought there would be no consequences. "Contact Earth Command," he said. "Tell them I am coming home, and tell them to prepare for the Council's answer to be no. And if they ask what comes next." Jinho was silent for a long moment. "Then we stop asking," he said. "And we start telling." The stars looked the same as they always did. Cold, distant, uncaring. But Jinho knew that soon. Those stars would burn with something the galaxy had never seen before. Human fury. 6 weeks had passed since the blockade began. 6 weeks of silence from the Galactic Council. 6 weeks of human suffering. On the colony world of New Busan, Sergeant Doyan-Ru walked through the refugee center with heavy steps. Children sat on the floor, too weak to play. Their parents watched him with desperate eyes, hoping for news that never came. "Sergeant," a woman called out, "when are the supply ships coming?" Doyan wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her that help was on the way, that everything would be fine. But he was tired of lies. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But Earth knows what is happening. They will not abandon us." He hoped he was right. Far away in the great city of Seoul on Earth, the World Assembly gathered. Every nation had sent their leaders. Every face was grim. Admiral Tai Ho Kong stood before them. He was a man of 60, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. For 20 years he had built Earth's fleet in secret. He had prepared for a war he prayed would never come. Now that prayer had failed. "The situation is clear," Tai-Ho said, his voice filling the chamber. 3 colony worlds. 3 million civilians. The Calorians have cut off all supplies. At current rates, our people have 2 months before mass starvation begins. Murmurs of anger rippled through the assembly. "What about the Galactic Council?" a delegate asked. "Have they responded to our requests?" Ambassador Jinho stepped forward. He had returned to Earth 3 days ago. He looked different now. The patient diplomat was gone. In his place stood a man who had learned an ugly truth. "I made one final appeal to the Council this morning," Jinho said. "I asked them to order the Calorians to end the blockade. I reminded them that we have done nothing wrong. I asked for justice." He paused. "High Arbiter," Morith laughed. Counselor Vrax said that the humans on those colonies would make adequate slaves for Calorian mining operations. Silence. Then an explosion of outrage. Slaves, someone shouted. They mean to enslave our people. They do not see us as people, Jinho replied. They never did. Admiral Taiho raised his hand for quiet. The time for diplomacy has ended. We have two choices. We can accept the loss of 3 million citizens and watch the galaxy take whatever else it wants from us. Or we can fight. Fight. A diplomat shook his head. Against the elder species, their fleets are 10 times the size of ours. Their technology is old. A new voice cut through the chamber. Dr. Hannah Shin walked to the podium. She was a small woman with cold eyes and a brilliant mind. For 15 years, she had led Project Prometheus, Earth's most secret weapons program. The elder species stopped advancing centuries ago, she said. They had no reason to improve. No competition. No threats. They became comfortable. She looked at the assembly with something like a smile. We did not have that luxury. We knew from the moment we reached the stars that we were surrounded by predators. So we prep. She activated a display. Images appeared. Weapons, ships, technologies that most of the assembly had never seen. Project Prometheus, Hannah continued. Adaptive armor that learns from every attack. Artificial intelligence targeting systems that react faster than any living mind. Nanite weapons that eat through enemy hulls like acid. Phase cannons that ignore their shields entirely. The assembly stared in shock. You built all this in secret? A delegate asked. We built this because we knew this day would come, Admiral Taiho answered. The galaxy sees humanity as weak, as prey. Today, we show them how wrong they are. The vote was held. It was unanimous. Jinho returned to Varus Prime one final time. He requested an audience with the full council, claiming to have important news from Earth. They granted it, expecting another pathetic plea. The chamber was full when he arrived. Every species was represented. Counselor Vrock sat in his usual seat, mandibles clicking with amusement. High Arbiter Morath looked down with ancient boredom. Ambassador Morath said, You have returned. Have your people finally accepted their place? Jinho walked to the center podium. He stood straight. His voice was clear. I am here to deliver a message from the people of Earth. Another request for recognition? Vrax laughed. Another begging for scraps from our table? No. Ginho looked directly at the insectoid counselor. A declaration of war? The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, laughter began. It spread from seat to seat until the entire council was roaring with amusement. War. Vrax's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a smile among his kind. You declare war on the Calorian Dominion? With what fleet? Those toys you call starships? Other counselors joined in the mockery. Some made theatrical gestures of fear. Others pretended to shake with terror. High Arbiter Morath raised a hand, and the laughter slowly stopped. He looked at Jinho with something like pity. Ambassador, he said, you have served your people with admirable dedication. It is almost sad to see this madness take you. Return home. Convince your government to surrender the disputed colonies. Perhaps the Calorians will be merciful. Merciful. Ginho's voice was quiet, but it carried. Your council has shown no mercy. Your member has blockaded our worlds, starved our children, and threatened our people with slavery. And you ask us to surrender? We are offering you survival, Morath replied. Accept your place, or be destroyed. This is the way of the galaxy. Ginho nodded slowly. I see. Then I have nothing more to say. We turned to leave. At the door, he stopped and looked back at the assembled representatives of 47 species. They watched him with contempt, with amusement, with complete confidence in their power. You should have listened, he said softly when I was still asking nicely. The doors closed behind him. Counselor Vrax made a sound of disgust. Pathetic creatures. I will enjoy breaking them. Morath said nothing. For just a moment, something flickered in his ancient eyes, something he had not felt in centuries. But he pushed it away. The humans were primitive. They were weak. They were nothing. He was wrong. In orbit above Varus Prime, the ESS Horizon prepared to depart. Captain Una stood on the bridge, watching the planet shrink below them. "Course set for Earth, Captain," Lieutenant Minho reported. "Good." Una turned to where Jinho sat, staring at nothing. "Ambassador, are you all right?" Jinho was quiet for a long moment. "Spent 3 years in that chamber," he said finally. 3 years of humiliation. 3 years of patience? I believed that peace was possible. I believed that if we showed them kindness, they would return it. He looked at Una. "I was a fool. You were hopeful," she said. "That is not the same thing, perhaps." Ginho stood. "But hope is done now. Now comes something else." "What?" Ginho walked to the window and watched the stars streak by as the horizon jumped to faster than light speed. "Ath," he said. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued with its business. Confident in its power, it's blind to what was coming. They would learn soon enough. The Kylorian blockade fleet orbited New Busan like a ring of steel. 200 warships, each one massive, each one bristling with weapons. Commander Gorith, leader of the fleet, sat on his throne and felt nothing but boredom. For 6 weeks, he had waited here. The humans had sent no rescue. No attack. Nothing. They were weak, just as everyone said. Soon, their colonies would fall, and the Kylorians would have 3 new slave worlds. "Commander," an officer called out. "Sensors detect incoming ships. Human signatures." Gorith clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Finally, how many?" 40 ships, Commander." Laughter spread across the bridge. 40 ships against 200. The humans had come to die. "Open a channel," Gorath ordered. "Let us offer them a chance to surrender. I wish to see their fear." The channel opened, and a human face appeared on the screen. A woman with hard eyes and silver hair pulled back tight. She wore the uniform of Earth's Navy. "Lorian Fleet," she said. "This is Admiral Tai Ho Kong of the United Earth Fleet. You are blockading sovereign human territory. You have 1 chance to withdraw. Take it." Gorath leaned forward. "1 chance? You bring 40 ships against my 200, and you threaten me." He laughed, a harsh, clicking sound. "Human, you are either brave or stupid, perhaps both." The woman did not flinch. "You have been warned." The channel closed. Gorath stood. "All ships, battle formation. Destroy them all. Leave nothing but debris." 200 Kylorian warships powered their weapons. Shields went up. Engines roared. They moved toward the small human fleet with absolute confidence. On the ESS Horizon, Captain Unibeak watched the enemy approach. Her crew was tense but ready. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. "Admiral," she said to the screen, showing Taiho's face. "They are coming." Good Taiho's voice was calm. "Begin Phase 1. Commander Yunji, you are clear to engage." From the darkness of space, something moved. Ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared right in the middle of the Kylorian formation. Ghost Squadron had arrived. Commander Yunji Wang smiled in her cockpit. Her squadron had drifted into position hours ago, running completely silent, invisible to every sensor the Kylorians had. Now it was time. "Ghost Squadron," she said. "Light them up." 20 small fighters released their payloads. Tiny capsules flew toward the nearest Kylorian ships and attached to their hulls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nanites activated. The capsules burst open, releasing billions of microscopic machines. They spread across the hull, plating like liquid silver, eating through metal as if it were paper. Kylorian ships began to crack and split. Air rushed out. Crew members screamed. Gorith watched in horror as 15 of his ships came apart in seconds. "What is happening?" "Report." "Unknown weapon, Commander. Our hulls are being consumed." "Impossible." "Fire on those fighters. Destroy them." The Kylorian ships turned their weapons on Ghost Squadron, but the fighters were already moving. They were faster than anything the Kylorians had seen, dancing between shots, disappearing and reappearing like phantoms. And then the main. Earth fleet struck. Admiral Taiho had positioned his ships perfectly. They came in from 3 directions, catching the Calorian formation in a crossfire. Human weapons fired and, the Calorians learned what terror felt like. Phase cannons cut through shields as if they did not exist. The Calorians had relied on their shields for centuries. No weapon in the galaxy could penetrate them. But human scientists had found a way. The phase cannons shifted their energy into another dimension, bypassing shields entirely and striking the hull beneath. Ship after ship exploded. The Calorian formation, so confident moments ago, became chaos, turned fire. Goroth screamed. All ships returned fire. Calorian weapons lashed out at the human fleet. Beams of energy struck the Earth's ships and did almost nothing. The adaptive armor absorbed the first hits, analyzed the weapon frequencies, and adjusted itself. The second wave of shots did even less damage. By the third wave, the armor was nearly immune. Goroth could not believe what he was seeing. His weapons were useless. His shields were meaningless. His fleet was dying. On the surface of New Busan, Sergeant Do Yan-Ru heard the news over his radio. The blockade was breaking. Help had come. He stepped outside the refugee center and looked up at the sky. In the distance, he could see flashes of light explosions in orbit. Each flash was a Calorian ship dying. People gathered around him. The same people who had looked at him with despair now stared at the sky with hope. They came, a woman whispered. Earth came for us. Of course they did, Do-Yan said, and he felt his eyes growing wet. We are not alone. We were never alone. In space. The battle was ending. Of 200 Calorian ships, only 20 remained. They were fleeing engines at maximum. Desperate to escape the nightmare they had stumbled into, Admiral Taiho watched them go. Let them run, he said. Let them tell their masters what happened here. Captain Yuna stood beside Lieutenant Minho on the Horizon's bridge. They had lost 4 ships in the battle. 4 ships against 180 enemy vessels destroyed. It was beyond anything they had imagined. We won, Minho said, his voice filled with wonder. We actually won. This was just the beginning, Yuna replied. The Calorians will not accept this. Neither will the Council. Then we will beat them. Again, Yuna looked at the young lieutenant and saw something in his eyes that had not been there. Before, confidence, pride, the belief that humanity could stand against any enemy. She hoped HFY was right. The surviving Calorian ships sent their reports to the homeworld. The messages were full of panic and fear. The humans had weapons that should not exist. Their ships were faster, their armor stronger, their tactics unlike anything the galaxy had seen. On Varus Prime, High Arbiter Moreth received the battle report. He read it once. Then again, his 6 eyes went wide. This cannot be true, he said. It is confirmed by multiple sources, High Arbiter, his aide replied. The human fleet destroyed over 90% of the Calorian blockade force. Their losses were minimal. Moreth sat back in his ancient throne. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had forgotten. Something cold and unfamiliar. Fear, the humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They had been hiding their true power, waiting, preparing, and now they were angry. Call an emergency session of the council, Morath ordered. This situation has become more complicated than anticipated. As his aides rushed to obey, Morth looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a species that the galaxy had dismissed as insignificant was rewriting the rules of power. The humans had struck their first blow, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity went to war. In 2 weeks, Earth's fleet struck 12 Calorian worlds. They did not come to conquer. They came to punish. Military bases burned. Weapons factories crumbled. The mighty Calorian Dominion, which had bullied the galaxy for 10,000 years, found itself facing an enemy it could not stop. News networks across 100 worlds broadcast the images. Human ships, sleek and deadly, tearing through Calorian defenses. Human soldiers, fierce and disciplined, liberating slave camps and freeing prisoners. Human technology advanced beyond anything the elder species had imagined. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. On Varus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The chamber that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's expense was now filled with fear. This is unacceptable. Counselor Vrock slammed his armored limbs against his seat. The humans are invading our territory. The council must respond. High Arbiter Morith raised a hand for silence. His ancient face showed strain. He had not slept since the battle at New Busan. The council will discuss appropriate responses, he said carefully. But we must first understand what we are facing. What we are facing. Vrax's mandibles clicked with rage. We are facing a species of primitives who got lucky. Send a combined fleet and crush them. Lucky? A new voice spoke. Counselor Cirrus, representative of the Vethany, rose from her seat. She was reptilian, with green scales and golden eyes. Unlike most council members, she had always treated the human ambassador with respect. The humans destroyed 90% of your blockade fleet in 3 hours, Cerise said. They have weapons your species cannot match. Their ships are faster than ours. Their armor is stronger. This was not luck, Counselor. This was planning. Then where did they get such technology? Another delegate demanded. They are only 2 centuries into space travel. They were fighting for survival, Ceres replied. We sat comfortable in our power for thousands of years. We stopped advancing. We stopped trying. But the humans knew from the moment they reached the stars that they were surrounded by threats. So they worked. They prepared. And now we are paying the price for our arrogance. Vrax made a sound of disgust. You defend them? They are attacking my people. Your people blockaded their colonies. Your people threatened to enslave their citizens. Cerise's golden eyes were cold. You started this war, Counselor. The humans are simply finishing it. The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates demanded military action against Earth. Others called for immediate peace talks. Some blamed Vrax. Others blamed humanity. No one could agree on anything. Morith watched the chaos with growing despair. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years through unity and overwhelming force. Now both were crumbling. Nuff. His voice echoed through the chamber, silencing everyone. This debate achieves nothing. We must make a decision. Do we assemble a combined fleet against Earth, or do we seek peace? A combined fleet would take months to gather, an advisor noted. By then, the Calorian homeworld itself may be under threat. Impossible, Vrax snarled. They would not dare. But even as he spoke, reports were coming in. Human ships had been spotted only 3 days from Calorian Prime. The invasion was coming. Far from the council chambers, General Su Jinyu stood on the surface of the last blockaded colony. Her boots pressed into the soil of a world that had been held hostage for 2 months. Now it was free. Around her, human soldiers planted Earth's flag. Colonists who had survived on rationed food and desperate hope fell to their knees and wept. Children ran to soldiers, hugging their legs, thanking them in small voices. Sujin had seen many things in her military career. But this moment, watching families reunited, watching hope return to broken eyes, this was why she fought. General, an officer approached with a tablet. Message from Admiral Taiho. She read it quickly. The Kylorian homeworld was within striking distance. The council was in chaos. Everything was going according to plan, but there was a warning. Some council species were pushing for a combined fleet to attack Earth. If they succeeded, humanity would face enemies on multiple fronts. Tell the Admiral I understand, Sujin said. We will be ready for whatever comes. On Earth, Ambassador Jinho sat in a quiet room, reading intelligence reports. The war was going well, better than anyone had expected. But he felt no joy. War was never something to celebrate, even when it was necessary. A message arrived. He recognized the sender, Counselor Cirrus. Ambassador Park, her voice said through the recording. I am taking a great risk by contacting you. There are those on the council who wish to destroy your species. Counselor Vrax, is demanding a combined fleet be sent to Earth. Others are beginning to support him. She paused. I do not agree with their choice. Your species deserved better treatment than we gave you. I tried to speak for you, but no one listened. Now I can only warn you, prepare for the possibility of a larger war. The message ended. Ginho sat in silence for a long moment. Then he forwarded the message to Admiral Taiho with a simple note. We may need Operation Sunfall. The contingency plan. If the Council moved against Earth, humanity would strike first not at military targets, but at the industrial hearts of every hostile species, factories, shipyards, resources. Without these, even the largest fleets would become useless within months. It was a terrible plan. It would cause suffering on a scale the galaxy had never seen, but if the alternative was humanity's extinction, there was no choice. On her ship, Captain Yuna received new orders. The fleet was being reorganized. Half would continue the campaign against the Calorians. The other half would take up defensive positions near Earth. They are really considering attacking our homeworld, Lieutenant Minho said quietly. They are afraid, Yuna replied. Fear makes people do desperate things. Will we be able to stop them? If the whole council comes against us? Yuna looked at the stars. For the first time, she did not have a confident answer. I don't know, she admitted. But we will fight. That is all we can do. In the council chamber, High Arbiter Morath finally made a decision. He looked out at the assembled representatives of 47 species. 47. Civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. We must end this, he said slowly. Before the humans reach Calorian Prime. Before more blood is spilled on both sides. End it how? Vrax demanded. Morath closed his 6 eyes. The word he was about to speak was one he had never used when addressing a younger species. It tasted like ash in his mouth. Negotiate. The chamber fell silent. Some delegates looked relieved. Others looked furious. Vrax looked like he might explode with rage, but Morath had made his choice. The galaxy would have to live with it. Whether humanity would accept peace was another question entirely. The ceasefire came at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Human ships stopped their advance. Calorian forces pulled back. For the first time in weeks, the guns fell silent. Ambassador Ginho Park returned to Varus Prime 3 days later. He walked through the same corridors he had walked 47 times before. The same guards stood at the same posts. The same ancient architecture towered above him, but everything was different now. When he approached the council chamber, the guards did not look at him with contempt. They looked at him with respect and fear. Representatives from other species stepped aside to let him pass. Some bowed their heads. Others simply stared. Captain Yuna walked beside him, along with a small escort of Earth's finest soldiers. They wore dress uniforms, polished and perfect. They were not here to fight. They were here to show that humanity was a power to be reckoned with. The great doors opened. Jinho entered the chamber. It was silent. No laughter. No mockery. No whispered jokes about the short-lived mammals. 47 species watched as the human ambassador walked to the center podium. High Arbiter Morath sat in his ancient seat, looking older than before. The weight of recent events had aged even him. Counselor Vrax was present, but he sat slumped in his chair, his mandibles still. The arrogance was gone from his posture. His species was 2 days from seeing human ships in orbit over their homeworld. He had nothing left to say. Ambassador Park, Morath said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The Galactic Council thanks you for accepting our invitation to discuss peace. Ginho stood straight. His voice was calm, but it carried power. High Arbiter, he replied. I stood in this chamber 47 times, asking for peace. Each time, I was ignored, mocked, dismissed. Now you ask me for the same thing I once asked you. He let the words hang in the air. The difference is that I will listen. Morath nodded slowly. We have prepared terms for your consideration. The Calorian blockade will be lifted permanently. Reparations will be paid to the affected colonies. Trade agreements will be no. The single word stopped Morath, mid-sentence. His 6 eyes focused on Jinho with surprise. No. The High Arbiter repeated. You do not offer terms? Ginho said. You accept them. Earth did not start this war. We did not ask for conflict. But we finished it, and we will dictate what comes next. Murmurs spread through the chamber. No younger species had ever spoken to the council this way. But no younger species had ever defeated an elder power in open war either. What are your demands? Morath asked carefully. Ginho produced a datapad and read clearly. First, full and immediate recognition of Earth's sovereignty over all current and future human colonies. No exceptions. No limitations. Morath nodded slowly. Acceptable. Second, complete war reparations from the Calorian Dominion. Your people starved our citizens, threatened them with slavery, and murdered innocents. You will pay for every life lost, every resource stolen, every day of suffering. Vrax made a sound of protest, but a look from Morath silenced him. Continue, the High Arbiter said. Third, protection guarantees for all human territories. Any attack on human space will be considered an attack on a full member of this council with all the responses that implies. A reasonable request. Fourth, Ginho paused. A permanent seat on the Galactic Council, with full voting rights, equal to any elder species. This time, the murmurs became shouts. Several delegates rose from their seats in outrage. Possible. One cried, They are barely a spacefaring species. They have not earned such a position? Another agreed. Ginho waited for silence. When it came, he spoke quietly. 3 weeks ago, your member species blockaded our worlds and threatened to enslave our people. You did nothing. We asked for help. You laughed. So we helped ourselves. In 18 days, we have brought the Calorian Dominion to its knees. Our fleet sits within striking distance of their homeworld. We have technology your species cannot match, weapons you cannot defend against, and the will to use them. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. We have earned this seat with blood, our blood and theirs. You will grant it, or the war continues. Morath was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he raised his hand. The council will vote. All in favor of accepting Earth's terms? One by one, hands and appendages rose. Some delegates voted quickly, eager to end the crisis. Others hesitated, their pride fighting against their fear. But in the end, every single delegate voted yes, even Vrax. The terms are accepted, Morath announced. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council. May this begin a new era of peace between our peoples. The session ended. Delegates began to file out, many avoiding Ginho's gaze. But Counselor Cerise approached him, her golden eyes warm. Ambassador, she said quietly, I am glad it ended this way. I am only sorry it took so much suffering to reach this point. 8. Ginho looked at her. Of all the council members, she was the only one who had shown him kindness during those 3 long years. Thank you for your warning, he said. It helped us prepare. What will you do now? She asked. Ginho thought about the question. For 3 years, his life had been defined by this struggle, the fight for recognition, for respect, for a place among the stars. Now that fight was over. I will go home, he said finally. I will see my family. And I will hope that the next generation of humans never has to stand where I stood. Cerise nodded. I hope so too. But the galaxy has a long memory, Ambassador. There are those who will never forgive humanity for this humiliation.
How?
Let them remember, Ginho replied. Let them remember what happens when humanity is pushed too far. He walked out of the chamber for the last time, Captain Yuna at his side. The ESS Horizon waited in orbit. Lieutenant Minho stood at attention as they boarded, a smile on his young face. Congratulations, Ambassador, he said. We did it, Ginho agreed. He looked around at the Krutha people who had stood by him through everything. All of us, together. Yuna gave orders, and the ship began its journey home. Ginho stood at the observation window, watching Varus Prime shrink behind them. Minho joined him after a while. Ambassador, the young man said, do you think they will ever truly respect us? After everything that happened? Ginho considered the question for a long moment. Respect? Perhaps not. Some will hate us. Some will fear us. Some will wait for a chance to strike back. He turned to face Minho. But they will never ignore us again. They will never dismiss us. They will never laugh at our pain and expect no consequences. Whatever else happens, humanity has proven that it will not be pushed aside. The stars streamed past the window as the horizon jumped to hyperspace. That, Ginho said quietly, is enough. Earth celebrated for days. But Admiral Taiho kept the fleet ready. Dr. Hannah continued her research. General Sujin trained new soldiers. Peace had come. But humanity had learned a hard lesson in a galaxy full of predators. The only true safety came from strength. They would never forget that lesson, and the galaxy would never forget them.